Hello my friends and welcome. I hope you're doing great, and if you're not, I hope things turn around for you today, because I'm cheering for you and we're all in this together. So what's on the docket for today? Well, it's pretty simple. Today, I just want to talk about a concept that every Tarkov player has become intimately acquainted with over the past couple of years: burnout. I think that most people who try Tarkov for the first time, myself included for sure, very easily get lured into what becomes a borderline addiction to this strange Slavic art piece. Tarkov defies almost every established guideline of game design, and despite that, or perhaps because of that, it became a cult hit. Then it became a mainstream hit, and then it lost momentum, and now many would say that it's dying. Tarkov's slow decay is more of a spiritual death than a physical one. On the surface, so much of the game is healthier than it's ever been. There are more guns, more maps, more missions, more items, more gear, more enemies, more systems and mechanics than ever before. The game is closer to full release, whatever that means, than it's ever been. And despite all of this, the game has just spent so much time in the oven that for many of us, it's well and truly just cooked. Like a piece of fermented fruit, the sweet and shiny exterior is covering up something rotten at the core. At least, that's how many of us feel. Is it true? I honestly can't even tell anymore. I feel like I've lost any sense of objectivity when it comes to Tarkov. I can't force myself to step back and see the big picture anymore. Thousands of hours immersed into the sights and sounds of Tarkov has numbed me to the dopamine rush that makes this game so addictive in the first place. And now all of my focus just seems stuck on the little issues that have become huge problems simply because they've overstayed their welcome and returned over and over again in different forms. First and foremost here is simply the way that Tarkov wastes your time, intentionally or not. The loading screens take a long time, the matchmaking takes a long time, setting up a loadout can take a long time, moving around the map takes a long time, healing yourself and packing magazines and picking up loot takes a long time. You know what is the only thing in Tarkov that doesn't take a long time? Dying. That happens in an instant, oftentimes so quickly that you don't even really know what the hell just happened. At first, this isn't so much of an issue. Tarkov's a very interactive game, and when you're first starting out, things like building a gun piece by piece, carefully selecting your equipment and supplies is like a game within the game. And for a certain amount of time, it's really a very satisfying part of the experience. Even the loading screens are pretty tolerable during the honeymoon period of the Tarkov player's life cycle. The anticipation is exquisite. It's like watching the reels of a slot machine slowly fall into place on a jackpot. Inevitably though, the anticipation turns into boredom. The boredom turns into frustration, and the frustration turns into burnout after the third or fourth time you spend 10 minutes loading into a match and 30 seconds playing the actual game before getting one-tapped in a single evening. To be frank, Tarkov is pretty much layered from top to bottom with so many little quirks and scenarios that waste precious minutes and seconds of your time. Some are intentional, by design, and others are caused by incompetence or a total lack of respect for the player's time. I don't know if I've ever played another game where my good vibes on any given day have been crushed so effectively by little things like back-end errors and inventory glitches that just waste 30 seconds of your time. In theory, it's a pretty small issue to deal with. So what? The game errored and you have to make your loadout again. Cry me a river, am I right? Okay, now have that happen to you 3 times a day, every day for 5 years. Sit through 7-minute loading screens every day for 5 years. Drag and drop the same parts onto the same gun and get the same error message every day for 5 years. Get killed by the same cheaters and scammed by the same flea market bots every day for 5 years. Now that brings us neatly to another point. It's not just short-term time wasting that is Tarkov's greatest sin, but the long-term stagnation and loss of momentum. The persistent waiting game that we've all played since we first got interested in this game that's going on something like 7 years now. 7 years. 7 years of waiting, hoping, and coping. 7 years spent thinking that this time the wipe's gonna be better than the last one. This time, the bugs are definitely gonna be fixed. This time, the cheaters, they're gonna be gone. This ban wave is the big one. This patch is the next great step forward. This time, they're gonna balance the spawns, right? This time, they're gonna improve CPU performance, right? This time, they're gonna improve loading times or improve the AI, right? But sadly, it's never this time. It's always maybe next time. Maybe in 6 months. Maybe next year. Maybe after the next Twitch drops, they can put some of those record sales figures to work and fix the 7-year backlog of technical debt that they've piled up behind the scenes. And you know, this monumental waiting game that we've been suffering through while we wait for the carrot on the stick that is the 1.0 release of Tarkov has affected the in-game attitude of the players as much as it has affected the out-of-game perception of the game itself. There's a very specific reason that the player base has obsessively min-maxed the progression and every single interaction with every single system in the entire game. We all know that we're gonna have to do all this shit again in a few months, so what's the point of doing anything besides brute forcing our way through as much of the content as possible, as fast as possible? The game already feels like it goes out of our way to waste our time, so why would we waste our own time not playing the game optimally, whatever that means? The Tarkov community has crunched the numbers on everything so effectively that now playing Tarkov feels like an optimized Excel spreadsheet. We do the quests in a certain order because it takes the fewest amount of raids to get the most progress. We only use certain guns because they have the lowest recoil. We only use certain ammo because it has the highest stats. We only play certain maps because they earn the biggest number of rubles. We only use certain armors because they cover the most amount of zones. At its core, I think Tarkov wanted to be a game where the experience of playing how you want, going where you want, and using what you want was supposed to be the driving force behind the player's satisfaction. But it ended up where every single other PvP-focused FPS that has ever been made ends up, being dominated by math that determines what is the most efficient and therefore effective way to solve as many problems as possible with as little input as possible. And that, in a nutshell, is why I have personally been enjoying solo survival games so much more than Tarkov for the past year. Particularly Stalker Anomaly with the Gamma mod pack. When playing Tarkov, I started to realize that I had almost no control over my experience with the game. Because there's always fierce competition from other players both in raid through PvP and out of raid through the cutthroat business of the flea market, you basically never get to take the game at your own pace. If you move too slow, you lose, and if you move too fast, you lose. Other players will always take the path of least resistance, and if you choose not to, because of some misguided sense of individualism, well, they're just gonna laugh at you while they're looting your dead body. I personally fell down this rabbit hole in Tarkov for a long time. I rebelled against the meta because I thought it made me morally superior, and I suffered for it. I had a miserable time using shitty guns and equipment because I thought it was better to die as a LARPer than to live as a sheep following the meta. Then I changed my mind and I decided maybe I should join the meta and have more fun. Maybe I should bunny hop corners and only use the top 5 guns and gear. Only run optimal ammo and just ignore everything that drew me to Tarkov in the first place. And guess what? I still suffered. Because personally, it feels just as shitty to win by playing how I don't want to than it does to lose while playing how I do. And maybe that's what really made me realize that this whole escapade has kinda gone on for long enough. The persistent cheating problem, the recent greed and lack of respect for the players that the developers have shown, and the everlasting string of technical problems that have defined Tarkov for almost a decade aren't just accidents or unrelated symptoms. They seem to be core to the identity of the game, and I just highly doubt at this point that any of the things that we've complained about like a broken record for 7 years are gonna change in any meaningful way. But hey, at least Nikita got his yacht, right? Now, to be honest, I made this video mostly because I had about 400 gigabytes of Tarkov footage sitting on my hard drive that I didn't want to just delete without using it for something. I've pretty much lost all desire to really make content for the game right now, at least the content that I used to like to make. I've done everything. I've gotten Kappa, I've done Lightkeeper, and even those achievements have just kind of lost all meaning to me. Most of my Tarkov content has always been centered around showcasing all the different things you can build and use in the game, but the community only wants to use the same 5 things in every category, and I just can't keep making videos on the same weapons every 6 months. It's mind-numbing. I truly don't know what to expect from the future of Tarkov anymore. I can never say that I won't ever come back, but right now I just can't see myself doing the same things on the same maps against the same players over and over and over again. But you know, I'm also not going to tell you that just because I'm burnt out, that you should be too. If you're still in love with Tarkov, well, I'm honestly quite jealous, my friend. I wish that I could feel that way again. All I really have to say here at the end of this incoherent rant is thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day and an even better week. Thanks for supporting this channel, and for better or for worse, I hope I can keep entertaining people in some small way on YouTube and Twitch without Tarkov, the glue that's held this sinking ship together for almost 5 years. Stay safe out there, everyone.